Last time we talked about positioning for impact. I did mention a couple of things that will help you, position right for impact. And why this is important is because, life is all about making impact. Nobody was created to just live and count time, get a job, get paid salary, and then pay bills, and then grow old and die. Nobody was created to live like that. That is the most miserable life of all. To just pass through time, go to school, get a job, and then get paid, pay bills, grow old and die. That is just the most frustrating routine we can ever think of. But if you want your life to count for more, then you must think impact. You must think value based. So, and then last week I told us that to position rightly for impact, you must master what we call consistency in character, consistency in conduct. And then I did also mention that you must be spontaneous in reaching out, especially doing good. So for today, I'm going to give you two other pillars that will help you position rightly for impact. First is that you must learn the act of volunteering. Learn the act of volunteering. Most times opportunity come in disguise, and sometimes availing yourself and entering an environment, position you for an opportunity that ordinarily would have eluded you. A lot of people are waiting. They wake up, they pray, they're trusting God, they want certain things to happen for them. Well, maybe that can happen, but I think that can account for maybe like 2 to 10% most of the time. Reality. There's no such thing as luck. There's nothing as luck. Everything happens by divine obedience. So you must have a sensitivity that is in response to the promptings of your spirit. Whether you are a faith person, whether you're a person of faith or not, there is always that inner prompting that it kind of call your attention closer in a direction of an opportunity. So when you see something like that, maybe one of the ways to connect appropriately is to volunteer. As a graduate, the job you're looking for in a bank may be waiting for you, but you don't have any contact in that bank. Think about it. You're at home applying, and then your CV is being shelved under the table, or squeezed and trashed, in the waste basket. You're not there. Yours is that you drop in with the security at the gate. What happened afterwards, you're not aware. But imagine you become that security officer. Now you have access to the staff, and you have access to even the management staff. And then they get to discover you that, oh, you're a graduate. Number one, they will feel like, what? You mean you're a graduate and you condescended to take this role? So you have already won that is an act of humility. And when you humble yourself, you're bound to be exalted. So people who see chances before they appear are always like 10 steps to 20 steps ahead of their peers. But the unfortunate thing is that poor people always wait for opportunity to happen before they start chasing it. But wealthy people see opportunity before it arrives. They see it in its raw form. So you have to begin to look at ideas that people have. In fact, forget about ideas. Think about what somebody is doing. Volunteer to be a part of that person's success story. Invest in people. Invest in people, what people are doing. Put yourself to it. Put your resources to them. Support them. Encourage them. By the time they go through that journey, you just realize that you are part of their success story. And it gives you an air of making impact. And then think about an organization that you love to work and you don't have any chance to get it. Just go there, volunteer your time to be there. I have a couple of friends who are working with foreign NGOs right now. They started as volunteers. Whilst others were looking for jobs, they went to volunteer themselves in local NGOs. But the experience they got from there positioned them for the opportunity. When there was opening in another NGO, they were looking for experience and they already got it. Even though when they got the experience, they were not being paid. but that experience became a tool that brought them to where they are today. And they are working with global foreign NGOs, paid handsomely in foreign currency, and it began from volunteering. So don't sit down and wait for things to happen. Begin to make things happen. When you wake up, think about where you can do something differently, what you can add to what is already happening, to give life to it. So think of volunteering. That is one of the ways to position for impact. Another pillar, or another way to position for impact is that you must learn to create a value chain. Never forget that wealth travels in the direction of value. Interest travel in the direction of value. Attention travel in the direction of value. If you're thirsty, for instance, you look for water. And if you're looking for water, you will not go to the stream. So think about how it was those days where somebody is thirsty and then they are looking for where to get water to drink. And then somebody just said one day, okay, I read the story of this young undergraduate who was sent to a place that was very hot. And then when they're in class, when you're thirsty, everybody will literally have to find their way back to the hostel. I mean, it's quite a distance. And in the hostel, maybe where they will get a clay pot and all of that, because most students don't have refrigerators. So an idea came to him, while others were complaining, what kind of place is this? This place is too hot. The guy decided to go buy nylon and started tying water in the nylon. And then he would freeze it. He had a little freezer, will freeze it, and when it's ice cold, we'll put it in a cooler. I take it to class. And so when people are testing, they come by for me. So even though the water is already freezing, it's still cold. So you see, he created a business for himself. That was how sachet water was introduced. From there, of course, they started thinking about advanced ways to package the water without leakages and without spilling. That was how sachet water came. And then from there to, what we call bottled water, as we see different brands springing up. So, build a value chain. Wherever you are, think about it. Somebody came to do NYC in a state in Nigeria, and there was no eatery. When you want to take people out, they just have joints where they drink beer and then those kind of stuff. There was no eatery where people can just go sit out to have lunch and stuff like that. And the guy saw that as an opportunity, and he already knew how to make yogurt, so he started with yogurt. And today, that brand, I don't want to mention it because they didn't pay me to advertise. So that brand is all over the place as we speak right now. That was how this young guy who came to do the compulsory 1-year national youth service became a business owner in that land. And before he finished his youth service, or immediately after he finished his youth service, he opened the biggest restaurant in that state. As we speak, even till now, that restaurant is still the biggest in that state. But it now has branches all over the place. And his yogurt brand is traveling across the country. Build value chain. That is how to position for impact. And then finally, I tell you this. There was a time I was, as an undergraduate, in one certain time, the weather was extremely hot. Extremely hot. So when you step out a little, you're literally looking for water to cool yourself. And then I was just imagining that somebody could just start a business. All you need to do is to buy a cooler. Cooling, these chillers, where you don't need to own water processing factory. You can just order for a food truck or water. You just make sure that you have cold water all the time. While I was still thinking about it, before I knew that I saw somebody open, he just took a shop and bought 2 chillers. And then they will supplying the truck of water, and people were literally queuing up. Even though the price of water had gone up, he was selling cheaper, but he was making more profit because of the volume and the turnover. He created value. Within the space of 1 year, they bought a land, built their own water manufacturing factory, and now they produce both sachet water and bottled plastic water. And they have like over 20 distribution buses right now, distributing water throughout that state. In 5 years, our business already has one. So you see, when you create value chain, you already position yourself for impact. Don't complain about what is not working. Think about what you can do to act, and to make things work in your society. This was the mentality of our forefathers. When they thought about traveling faster, they loved the camel. and a cat. And somebody talked about producing an engine, a combusting engine. And today we have automobiles of varying, brands. And when they thought about traveling faster, somebody also thought about creating an aircraft. And that was how the Wright brothers, became the household. You need to put your own need on the map. Stop complaining about what is not working. Position yourself for impact. Take advantage of all the opportunities that are available within your vicinity and leverage on it, because that is where the world is waiting for you to make impact. Never forget this. Romans chapter 8 and in verse 19. It said the earnest expectation of creation waited for the manifestation of sons. And I know that this is your season to manifest. If this has blessed you, please like, comment, share, and let someone be blessed by this. God bless you. I'm always waiting for you. See you at the top. Bye-bye.